Welcome back. All right, so my continuing look at teams that missed the playoffs in 2024. We are now up to the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild finished with 87 points, record of 39, 34, and 9, and they were in the hunt until pretty late in the season. And in the end, they end up with 87 points, which is a drop from the 103 they had last season. Can they get back to 100 points next year? Probably not. However, the future, I think, is pretty bright for this team past one more year of pain. There's one more year of pain, and then Bill Guerin will be freed up to have a lot more space than what he's had to work with over the last couple of seasons. So their coach, John Hines, took over after Dean Evison got fired. Their record under Evison was 5-10-4. Under John Hines, 34-24-5. So definitely a better record under John Hines than what they had under Dean Evison. Their general manager, Bill Guerin, there's been some criticism of Guerin in the way he's done things. I know the buyouts of Parise and Suter have been seen as a mistake by some, but that mistake pretty much clears itself up after this coming season, and I understand why he did it. I think he knew there was going to be some pain coming out of it. And with some good drafting and some solid prospects, I think it's been better than what it could have been. So, goals for, they were 21st in the National Hockey League this year. Goals against, they were 19th. So, mediocre in both categories. The goaltending at times looked good, at times looked mediocre. And again, the goal scoring kind of came and went. Kaprizov, at the very least, had another very good season, and so projects to be likely 50 goals, 100 points every year for a while here. He was close to both of those marks this season, and he missed 7 games with injury. So, honestly, I think the future is pretty bright for this team. Now, they have only got a playoff drought of one season, so it's barely qualified as a drought. For the Minnesota Wild, they're going to be looking to get back into the playoffs next year, is my guess, anyways. I mean, they extended Marc-Andre Fleury. I don't think you bring Fleury back for another year unless you're hoping to make it into the playoffs. They did finish the season 3-5. They only won 3 of their last 8. That's part of the reason why they ended up outside the playoffs rather than in the playoffs. They were right in the hunt right up until they really weren't. To the point where John Hines was willing to pull the goalie in overtime. It worked once. It didn't work the second time. That's why their record's 39-34-9 instead of 39-33-10. Because if you give up that extra point in the overtime, that then basically reflects as a regulation loss, even though it was an overtime loss. So, the cap space we will get back to. We will discuss the cap. It is something you have to discuss with the Minnesota Wild. And I apologize to Wild fans because it may feel like, the horse has been passed for a while and it's still getting kind of walloped. Anyways, Kirill the Thrill lived up to his nickname. 75 games, 46 goals, 50 assists, 96 points. Easily their top scorer. Boldy, second on the list, 75 games, 29 goals, 40 assists, 69 points. Matt Boldy is a fantastic player, and so is Joel Eriksson Ek. 77 games, 30 goals, 34 assists, 64 points. So decent totals from their top 3, and then we get into the players that are 22 years of age or younger that played for this team this year, and starting with Brock Faber. Everybody loves Faber in Minnesota. 82 games, 8 goals, 39 assists, 47 points. You have to wonder if Spurgeon's healthy for training camp next year. What's that blue line going to look like? That's a pretty solid blue line they have there. Marco Rossi had a good rookie season, plays 82 games, not 84. No, we don't do 84-game schedules. We haven't done an 84-game schedule in so long. I can't even make an excuse for why I would rate 84 instead of 82. Other than maybe I was, looking back and thinking back to older days. All right, 21 goals, 19 assists, 40 points for Rossi in 82 games this year. Huznadinov, 16 games, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. I don't think the 4 points in 16 games, that translates to about 20 points in a season. Huznadinov is going to score at a higher rate than that next year. I think he'll probably be higher in the lineup. I did like the way that they kind of gradually worked him in, had him doing the fourth line minutes. I would expect him to do more. Ogren is going to be a guy that they're looking to build around too. 4 games, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. Beckman, 2 assists in 11 games for Beckman. Damon Hunt had 1 assist in 12 games this year. And Raska, 5 games, no points for Raska. So those are all players 22 years of age or younger who played for them this year. And we'll see which ones are regulars next year. We know Faber and Rossi will be. Huznadinov should be. Ogren probably is. And so, yeah, this is going to be a pretty fun young roster to watch. The goaltending is going to be interesting because they did re-sign Fleury. So does Wallstead spend another year in the minors, or did they carry 3 goaltenders? Gustafsson, 2018-4 record with an .899 save percentage. Gustafsson didn't have the kind of year this year that he had last year. So if they decided to go with Fleury and Wallstead and look at maybe moving Gustafsson, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. Fleury 17-15-5 with an .895 save percentage. Fleury was good at points. Suspect at other points. This is probably his last year coming up, but we've been saying that for the last few years. Wallstead was 2-1 with an .897 save percentage, and he is the future in net. They were very excited to get him in the first round. I think he'll get an opportunity to play definitely more games than he did this season. But do you go with Gustafsson and Fleury and then have Wallstead there in case somebody gets hurt? And so we'll see what Guerin decides to do for next season. So on the way, they still have some good young prospects. There's Danila Yurov, forward, plays all forward positions. Riley Height, center. Charlie Stramel, center as well. And Carson Lambos, a defenseman. So there's still some really good young prospects yet to come up with this team. They've drafted well. Minnesota's absolutely drafted well. And this is kind of where it stands out, the idea that, it's one thing to draft a really good top 10 draft pick, but where good drafting shows up is when you get those hits in the second, third, fourth round and beyond. And Minnesota recently has shown they are able to do that, or they're able to trade for good young prospects from other teams and turn them into NHLers on their team. And with the cap space situation that we are going to discuss, they kind of have to work it that way. So their pending UFA list, not that long and not one that's going to be a problem. Lucchini, Goligoski, Mermis, and Kara. Yes, Jujhar Kara, a member of the Minnesota Wild organization this season. Outside of Goligoski, I don't think any of them necessarily get re-signed. If Lucchini does, it's at league minimum. Same with Kara, same with Mermis. Goligoski, I don't think it's going to be that expensive to re-sign him either. They're pending RFAs. Mason Shaw, who was a good story this year. Good story for him to be able to come back and continue his career. Chisholm, who they picked up from Winnipeg, and I think he played much better in Minnesota than he did in Winnipeg. Beckman, who I previously mentioned over here. Sammy Walker, as well as Roska. So Walker's one to keep an eye on this coming season. There's something there with Walker. I don't know what position he'll end up playing, like on what line in the National Hockey League, but there's something there. But their pending RFAs and UFAs won't break the bank. And this is something that Guerin seemed to be well aware of during the season. He extended Hartman. He extended Foligno. There's still some debate about whether or not he should have signed those guys long-term. Well, not long-term, but he gave them extensions, whether or not that was the right move, or if maybe he should have looked at potentially a trade. But either way, he re-signed them. His UFA and RFA list is a short one, and nobody's going to break the bank for this team because there's not a lot of room in that bank this coming season. So the extensions that are due next year, Marco Rossi, Brock Faber, and Jesper Wallstead. So those are 3 that could end up being relatively sizable, although Wallstead probably isn't going to play a ton next year. Probably be a bridge deal for him. But Rossi and Faber, it could be argued that they'll be in the 7 or 8 year extension category, and Minnesota might want to give them a ton of money, and they'll be able to do that next summer. So if you're looking at draft picks and teams that are stockpiling draft picks, Minnesota hasn't done that. They have 6 picks this year, 5 picks next year, but in 2026 they have 11 draft picks. So either they keep those picks and use them, or they trade them out for other assets they need later. So the cap space they're going to have on July the 1st, according to Cap Friendly, $5,924,746. And a big part of that is the penalty for buying out Parise and Suter of $14,743,588. So that absolutely hampers their ability to bring players in. It hampers their ability to sign guys to extensions. As I said, though, they don't have to worry about that this summer. Plus, if they can finagle things a little bit, that $6 million, maybe they end up adding to their roster just a little bit, like not a lot. Obviously, you can't afford anybody major, but next summer they might be able to, because that $14.7 million approximately, that's the cap penalty. Next year, that drops to $1,666,666. So with that cap penalty dropping dramatically next summer, that allows Rossi and Faber to get re-signed. You don't have to worry about losing them. Plus, with the salary cap going up this summer and very likely to go up next summer as well, they're talking about a salary cap as high as like $95 million per team within the next few years. Minnesota will have some money. They'll be able to make some additions. We may just be looking at one more year of a team that's mediocre. Maybe they get in the playoffs with the right coaching and the right style of play. But more than likely, probably not. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think there's a player who they might trade to try to free up some cap space? Maybe Johansson kind of thing. But Johansson, it's only a $2 million cap hit. Not necessarily a needle mover either. But will they try to make more cap space? Or do you think, you know what, they'll just deal with the pain for one more year, which I think is what Guerin's going to do. And then next summer, Minnesota could be a real player in the free agent market and could be an exciting up-and-coming team at that point. But let me know your thoughts. One thing with Minnesota, it's very similar to the storyline with Dallas that I felt this season. A lot of good young players. Very good young nucleus you can see coming together. So the future's bright. But let me know your thoughts about the Minnesota Wild in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.